What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. Finally, today we have one of the most requested guests on the Thank God It's Monday podcast, Jake Broe. We met with him a couple of years ago. We did an interview with him already, but so many things have changed. And I'm very excited to have you, Jake, now on my channel as a guest. I'm sure the viewers are extremely excited to have you, to see you, to hear what you have to say. So welcome and thanks so much for accepting the invitation.
Thanks for having me on, Artem. It's good to talk to you again. That podcast we did on my channel, I think was almost 3 years ago now. So I'm sure
It
a
was
lot has
almost at the
changed
very
since
beginning.
then.
Yep, exactly. So every single time I start with, if guys you don't know about this person, let the guest introduce himself. But yeah, Jake Broe, I think, is one of the most known Russian Ukrainian YouTubers in our industry. So it's not that much, I guess, you can tell about yourself, except one thing. At least personally, I don't know much this side of you. When we open your YouTube channel, go into the description of the channel, it says, and I'm going to just read it, that you're a United States Air Force veteran who served as a nuclear and missile operations officer. If it's not a state secret, because it sounds very serious, can you tell us about this particular experience, specifically nuclear related?
I served in the United States Air Force for 6 years on active duty, and I was an operator for the Minuteman III Intercontinental Ballistic Missile System. This is the land leg of the nuclear triad, and I was stationed at Vandenberg in California for 2 years. I did some work with the test flight group, the 576th, and then I spent 4 years in Minot, North Dakota. This is near the Canadian border. And within a 4-year period, I spent over 300 days, 324-hour shifts underground in a launch control capsule. I was in charge of the maintenance, security, and operations, usually for a flight of 10 launch facilities, but sometimes because a capsule was down for maintenance or whatever, I'd be in charge of up to 20 silos. And yeah, that was my day-to-day job, and nothing crazy ever happened. Obviously, no missileer in U.S. history has ever launched an ICBM in an act of war, but that's our job. Nuclear deterrence, we say, never takes a day off. It's always working, and the fact that cities are not being blown up by nuclear weapons proves it's working and deterrence holds. But everything the last 3 years has kind of been tossed up in the air thanks to the actions of one man, Vladimir Putin.
So these control rooms and everything, do they even look like what they show us in the movies, or it's completely different, or it's more or less the same? What do you think?
A launch control capsule, it's about 60 to 80 feet underground. There's a missile alert facility topside, and we drive out to sites. It's always 2 operators, a commander and a deputy. And yeah, you go down, and it's not very big. What it's comparable to is like being on an airplane. The bathroom in the capsule feels like an airplane bathroom, and there's the sound of all of the communication racks in the capsule, and there's constant airflow to keep all of the equipment cooled, and the capsules never turn off. They're on 24/7. So when you're down there, it just kind of feels like you're on a very long flight. I've been on a 14-hour flight before between Chicago and Seoul, South Korea, and getting in a capsule for 24 hours. It's like taking a 24-hour flight. I did that over 300 times within a 4-year period.
I mean, yeah, extensive experience, and definitely, at least my perspective, a little bit changed about how it looks, I guess, how it feels. So yes. Another thing I want to ask once again. So there is obviously 2 camps of people who what they think about the nuclear weapons in general. First, people think there should be no nukes at all because they are the huge destroyers of the world. Other people say that yes, it is. These are bad weapons, very destructive weapons, but they are necessary because exactly there are some people call them deterrence systems, because having nukes prevents the enemy from attacking you, so potentially prevents even bigger war. And since you worked specifically in this field, in this industry, what do you think? Is this a deterrence weapon, or is this something that not a single country should ever have?
We can't put the genie back in the bottle. Humans figured out how to split the atom and harness it into a weapon in 1945. And there's no way that humanity can ever unlearn this. Even if some governments successfully, through diplomacy, convinced every country in the world to destroy their nuclear weapons, at some point in the future, a terrorist group or a rogue nation or whoever would just create a new one, and it would start the cycle again. So we can't undo this. The capabilities of uranium and plutonium, everyone in the world knows. But nuclear proliferation is a concern. Like, we should do everything we can to reduce the stockpiles. What number does China need? What number does France or the UK need to feel like they have an effective nuclear deterrent? The answer is not 6,000. The answer is, closer to 30 or maybe 300 at most. So the reason why Russia and the United States, the Russians have on paper about 6,000. The United States has 5,800. That's progress. That's down from each having some insane number. The maximum extent of the nuclear stockpiles for the Soviet Union and the United States going back to like 1972 was like 30,000 or something each. So we've gotten it down. We've gotten it down from 60,000 total between the two superpowers down to 6,000, and this is through a series of bilateral treaties, the New START treaties under Reagan and then Herbert Walker Bush, and it continued even under Obama. And the Russians always had this calculation of, because it's expensive. It's expensive to maintain 30,000 nuclear weapons. So the Russians have always been willing to go lower as long as they always had, like 100 more than the United States. The United States for 30 or 40 years has been happy to give Russia that superlative title of the largest stockpile, when it really doesn't matter. And the Russians got down to 6,000, and they've not been willing to go any lower through bilateral treaties. The United States is happy. The United States is happy to destroy our own stockpile and reduce the number we have because we feel like we can win any conventional war. Our naval power and our air power is so superior to the Russians and any other nation on Earth. We don't need nuclear weapons as a deterrent or to win a war. There's only two nations that can basically destroy every capital city in the world. It's Russia and the United States. The United States only maintains thousands of nuclear weapons because the Russians insist on it. But I do think at some point in the future, there's going to be talks, especially after the last 3 years, and the Russians are going to have to come down to a more manageable, reasonable number. I'm guessing in the hundreds, not thousands.
With this, I absolutely agree with you. First of all, to the very beginning of this question, yes, I also agree that you cannot put genie in the bag, even if all the meaningful, good, quote-unquote, countries they get rid of all the nukes, still there's going to be a terrorist organization and everything, rogue organizations and everything. So unfortunately, yes, now it is so much a deterrent weapon that like, don't mess with us, we have nukes. Also agree with you 100% that yes, 3,000, 9,000, 6,000, 5,800, that is it is just a number for a number, pretty much. Exactly like you said, Russia wanted to always have maybe 100 more nukes just for the title of the country with the most nuclear warheads in the world. Like, pretty much, yeah, you are reading my mind. Agree with you 100%. Very hard to add something else here, especially if you've been working in this field. So yeah, it's good to know that I guess we're both on the same page in this case.
Artem, let me add something here.
Yes.
I do believe nuclear weapons have saved millions, if not tens of millions of lives just by their existence.
Yep.
Because a nation has nuclear weapons, the major industrial powers of the world have not been able to go to conventional war against each other. The major powers of Europe stopped killing each other, which was the cycle for hundreds of years, because everyone had nukes. And even now with the hot topic of India and Pakistan, it's a religious rivalry, but because they both have nukes, they both cannot escalate. They both have to restrain themselves. I understand people are dying. It's terrible. Hundreds, if not thousands, in these border skirmishes over the last couple decades. But if India and Pakistan did not have nukes, they would have gone to a conventional war with each other and potentially millions could have died. Nuclear weapons have changed the world, and I know it doesn't feel like this, but the last 80 years have been the most peaceful 80 years on this entire planet in human history, because it's always been about empires and civilizations and monarchs and dictators just continuously going to war because there was never a risk to them in their capitals. It's easy from the seat of the Kremlin to send out your hordes across the Eurasian steppes to keep expanding your borders when you're safe. the Tsar of Russia or whatever. You're safe in your capital city. But with ICBMs and cruise missiles and nuclear weapons, monarchs, dictators, potentates, whatever, they can't just send their troops to die. They can be targeted, and their capital city, can be destroyed at any point. So that has kept the peace to a certain extent, though it is kind of difficult to think about. And it doesn't diminish the fact that there's still hot zones around the world and people are still dying needlessly, but stronger diplomacy is needed to resolve those issues.
Precisely. I mean, that is the paradox of the nuclear weapons. You have them, weapons of mass destruction, but just having them, it's what prevents. Just like, Armenia, Azerbaijan, they have this Nagorno-Karabakh. Neither of the countries have nuclear weapons, and so this small conflict over this small mountain zone just appears. Tens of people die, hundreds of people die, then it stops, appears again because they're like, why not? Like, we're gonna invade, we're gonna shoot a little bit, and what's gonna happen? Like, if we cannot advance, we're just gonna stall the invasion once again, see what happens in the future. So yes, that is the paradox of the nuclear weapons. I agree with this one as well with you, Jake. So now I would say, since both of our audiences of our channel, I would say maybe primarily interested in Ukrainian Russian stuff, let's talk a little bit about this topic right now. You are obviously known as, once again, one of the biggest experts in the war updates. I think you're doing them every 2 days right now. I think you've always been doing them every 2 days. But also what you are known is for the massive number of interviews. You interview people, some other media outlets. I think Kiev Post is one of the latest one I've seen on my homepage, blah, blah. But also you do a lot of, at least 2, if I'm not mistaken, fundraisers with like millions of dollars. And you send trucks to Ukraine. I also see your Instagram posts and everything. So can you tell us more about this? How much money were you able to collect, and how you even found the connections in Ukraine, where to transfer these huge amounts of money, how to trust those people that they're gonna buy the military trucks, drones, and everything you wanted, how this whole thing works?
With fundraising on the internet, you have to be very careful because there are lots of scammers and people who are on Twitter posting fake pictures, fake videos, fake stories to try and say, give me money. This is probably some Nigerian prince pretending to be a Ukrainian soldier in the trenches. So I was hesitant at first to partner with anyone to do fundraisers. I didn't want to ask my audience for money. I never ask my audience for money for myself. I did do some limited sponsorships in 2023, but I quickly stopped. I just didn't feel comfortable talking about people dying and then say, hey, sign up for Surfshark VPN or something. Like, it just didn't feel congruent for me. So the guys at the NAFO 69th Sniffing Brigade reached out to me, and they're in Estonia. I don't know these people, but they worked with Operator Starsky. They worked with Anna from Ukraine. They worked with Georgie from Ukraine Matters. They've met these people. I've never met them in person. So you have to rely on people to vouch for people you don't know. So the guys at the NAFO 69th Sniffing Brigade reached out to me. My birthday was coming up, and I said, well, why don't I do a fundraiser? I'm turning 40. Why don't I fundraise $40,000? I thought that was a respectable amount. My secret goal was maybe 80,000 or 100. The record with the NAFO 69th Sniffing Brigade prior to that fundraiser was Artur Rehi, and Artur Rehi had fundraised over like $200,000. And it just exploded. I was not prepared for it. I did not think I had that capability to inspire people to donate to such levels, because within 7 days, we got it over $1 million. And now pretty much every quarter, every 3 months, I just do another fundraiser with them for another $1 million. And I've done this now 4 times, consistently breaking the 1 million mark. We sell patches and we share videos of the units that are going to get trucks and drones. And in total, with just the NAFO 69th Sniffing Brigade, my YouTube community has fundraised $4.8 million. They always drift over $1 million, they go 1.1, 1.2, and that equates to 130 vehicles, in addition to hundreds of drones, as well as other special equipment and medical supplies and such. So that's consistent. I'm going to be doing that probably every 3 months until Russia is defeated. Additionally, with a gentleman from the UK named Richard Woodruff, I've been helping with fundraisers for a group called VidNova. These are Ukrainian defenders recuperating in the hospital close to Lviv. They're allowed to go with their significant others up to the Carpathian Mountains for like a medicinal weekend retreat. It's not very expensive to just pay for a couple days in the mountains for some guys in the hospital to get some fresh air and sunshine. I've also done just random fundraisers, people who reach out to me. I get requests all the time. If anyone's watching me, I truly apologize. I can't be a representative and partner with everyone for every fundraiser. That just can't be what I do every day, all day. So I'm very selective. I have to either know these people, spoken to these people, or I have supreme confidence in somebody vouching for them that I know they're credible, I know they're responsible, and I know they have the best interests of Ukraine at heart.
Almost $5 million. Wow, like I thought you only did two. And once again, I kind of still follow your work and everything. It's already been four. So yeah, just five. Like you were shocked when your goal was $40,000. Now, yeah, I'm equally shocked here how much money you raised for Ukraine. That is absolutely incredible. Now, I'm assuming all the links. So do you leave all those links whenever you announce the campaign, or all these links are under every single YouTube video that you make?
When I'm actively doing a fundraiser, I'll put the links in those videos where I mention it. Day to day, those links are not on all my videos. Usually, when we get over the 1 million mark, I tell my subscribers to stop donating to me and to go to the patches page and help other channels complete their fundraising goals. So there are lots of Twitter channels. I'll give you an example. For example, Special Herson Cat. I don't know who this person is, but I've been following them on Twitter for over 3 years. They also do fundraisers with the NAFO 69th Stiffing Brigade. And when people don't know your face and they don't know your name, it's just harder to get donations. So usually when I go over that one at the end of the video, I'll say, hey guys, we crushed it again. You're all fantastic. If you want to go to the patches page of their websites and you can find the other campaigns, it all goes into the same pool of money. It's the same organization. They're buying the same trucks. I don't need to run up the scoreboard to overinflate my self-worth. So I usually tell people, you can make monthly recurring donations, or you can jump on somebody else's campaign and help them achieve their goals as well.
So yes, perfect. Then guys, obviously, definitely go ahead and check Jake's channel. I'm once again sure 90% of you already know about Jake's channel, but yeah, keep a close eye every single time whenever he's gonna start a new campaign, participate in it. It's like $5 million. Wow, this is extremely commendable. Thanks so much, Jake, for helping Ukraine from, I guess, every single one of us watching.
And
Thanks so
Artem,
much.
I
Yes.
just want to say that I never touch the money. The money does not come
Yes.
into any account that I ever see or control. This goes to the Donor Box platform, which partners with nonprofits. I believe that's what the 69th Stiffing Brigade labels itself as. And the money is then transferred through them to purchase the vehicles. They make accountability videos. So every time these fundraisers are done, they always produce for me a very slick video. They've got very good editors. I'm not that talented in my editing skills. And my audience can see for themselves the accountability of the drones and the trucks being delivered, and members of those units are thanking everybody on cameras.
Yeah, once again on Instagram as well, I also see sometimes there is like your, not, I don't know how to call it, stickers on the side of the trucks with your like face. It says Jake Broe, like YouTube logo and everything. Yeah, I see all those things. No doubt in this. It's not like this money go nowhere. Yes, I'm not even going to question you this. It's not an interrogation. I know like you're a fully transparent, honest person. I just can feel it. I cannot explain it. I can feel it. So yeah, what about if we get a little bit more political now? And we
Do
talk
it.
about Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, and their relationship. What do you think the relationship was before Donald Trump became the president, and as soon as he became the president? What was his expectations from Vladimir Putin from the war? What is it right now, and where do you think it is going?
I think between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, well, one, Putin perfectly understands Trump. Putin is a former KGB intelligence officer. He was trained under the Soviets to understand, to read, and to manipulate people. So Putin doesn't have any doubts. What does Trump want? What is Trump doing? But Donald Trump is an idiot, and he genuinely does not understand what is motivating Putin at the current time. Trump genuinely believed, I think going back 6 or 7 months, I actually do believe this now. Trump believed he could stop the war if he just gave enough incentives for Putin to stop. And Trump, his entire life, has only been motivated by one thing: making money. Trump is from Manhattan. He's a businessman, a real estate guy. And Trump has been massively insecure about how poor he's been relative to the other billionaires that live in New York City and on Wall Street. So Trump, his entire life, has been looked down upon by high society of Manhattan, high society of Wall Street. So Trump has always had this grudge, this bone to pick, is the expression. And Trump, you can see it in the first 4 or 5 months. He's just trying to enrich himself as much as possible. The Trump family's net worth has increased by like $4 billion in the first 4 or 5 months. He's flying to the Gulf states, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. He's accepting bribes, a $400 million plane, his crypto coin, his stupid Trump media stock, selling access to the White House through his crypto coin. Like, it's just about making money and enriching himself. Donald Trump doesn't have many more years left on this planet. And in the remaining years on this earth, he has committed himself to becoming as wealthy as possible. It's the only thing he cares about. And he thought he could motivate Putin with money. He thought, why don't we get into office and we start making some deals, Putin? And I'll make some money, you'll make some money, we'll engage in corruption, there'll be some graft, some phony contracts, we'll move money around, you'll make billions, I'll make billions. What do we need to fight about? And Putin is not motivated by money. Putin views the treasury of the state of Russia as his personal bank account. Money goes in, money goes out. He's not. There's nothing that Donald Trump can offer him materially, financially, that Putin wants. Putin is doing this war truly for legacy. He wants to restore the borders of the Soviet Union or the Imperial Russian Empire. And a century from now, he wants people singing songs about him. He wants statues and monuments all across the country extolling his glory of returning Russia to its rightful place as a global superpower in a multipolar world. That's what he's going for. And that's why he's willing to kill millions of people and allow millions of his own people to die. When you've already achieved the level of power and wealth that Putin has, that's all that's left for any emperor, for any dictator, for any tyrant. Once you have all the women and super yachts and mansions and money, you get bored, and then you start talking about empire and legacy. Trump still doesn't understand that. Trump, to a certain extent, thinks like in those terms, but talking about annexing and invading Greenland and Canada and turning the United States into basically a supercontinent of North America. But he's too dumb to actually figure that out or pull that off. He's already kind of backing away from that. But that's my theory about what's the miscommunication between Putin and Trump. And we're seeing it in real time. Like, we're seeing the clips and the tweets of Trump figuring it out. There's nothing, absolutely nothing that Trump can offer Putin to make Putin stop these wars.
So like you mentioned, and I do agree with this, I also seen it, that Trump kind of started to figure out that this very bad Vlad is playing with him, is delaying, is stalling the peace talks. It's like, I also talk about this in my videos, the goal of Putin's administration is to make Phil Trump's administration that peace is just like somewhere around the corner. Like, just wait a little bit longer, Donald. We're just gonna do it right now, like just a little bit longer, couple more weeks, and we're gonna give you this ability to tell to Fox Media that Trump declared peace between Russia and Ukraine, to make the headline. And this is what once again keeps Trump kind of believing Putin and everything. But once again, like you said, I also saw it, Trump started to realize that, wait a second, Vladimir Vladimirovich is playing with me. For this reason, once again, what do you think will be in the future the relationship? Will Trump completely realize that Putin is fooling with him and just said, okay, whatever, you Vladimir, you handle your own business, I'm out? Or what do you think will be in the future between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin?
We're already seeing it this week. And I think Donald Trump is going to say, I tried my best, but there's nothing I can do here. Now, the fear is that he'll just completely walk away from Ukraine, but I think we've established you just can't do that. All of our G7 trading partners and NATO allies, you just can't walk away and ignore the largest land war in Europe since World War II. We have over a million American citizens living and working in the European Union. The European Union is America's largest trading partner. this is disrupting global security and affecting future conflicts that might arise, specifically with China. So Trump is an idiot, and he doesn't like this because he can't control it. So what he's going to do is he's just going to walk away and let other people handle it. And I think Senator Lindsey Graham is in Ukraine again today. This is the Republican senator who says he has 81 senators co-sponsoring this sanctions bill, and it's going to be voted on next week, whether Donald Trump wants or not. And Trump controls every member of the Republican Party. They have to do what he says. So Senator Lindsey Graham and Brian Fitzpatrick, he's the Republican in the House who's in charge over there. They wouldn't be saying and doing this stuff unless Trump already said, okay. So I think what Trump has genuinely done is told every Republican in the party, I don't care what you say or do. If you want to badmouth Putin and the Russians, okay. If you want to support Ukraine, okay. I'm going to be neutral on this issue. I still like Putin. I still like the way Russia does business. I want to keep my options open to have good relations with Putin, in some way in the future, which is insane, but that's what he actually wants. But he's going to let the national security apparatus of the United States take over and do what it's designed to do. He's been holding them back. So Republican senators, Republican House members, national security advisors, Keith Kellogg had a huge press junket this weekend. Like, Keith Kellogg is a nobody in the Trump administration, and he's been docile and silent for months. And all of a sudden, he's on ABC's Face the Nation or whatever. Like, he's doing the media tour circuits because he supports Ukraine and he opposes Russia. Whereas 3 months ago, Trump was telling him, shut up, this is not your moments. But now it's his moments.
I did have a feeling once Trump got elected to be the next president that, yes, if he will not be able to solve the conflict fast, he will get bored with it, it will no longer be interesting to him, and he will once again delegate it to somebody else. So whatever you're saying just confirms my assumptions, I guess I would say. In this case, I can also agree with you 100%. And so, in the unlikely and hopefully unlikely case scenario, if Trump gets disinterested, if America is no longer maybe that much supporting Ukraine, once again, in the unlikely, hopefully case scenario, so if Putin is no longer held accountable for all the war crimes he is doing, he continues the war in Ukraine, do you think he will stop just in Ukraine, or will he go even further by seeing that the West is not opposing him that much anymore?
No, Putin is committed for it all. I mean, at the very minimum, all of Ukraine, a unified state. They won't, Viktor Sobolev is talking about a unified state between Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia with Russia's old natural borders. But the natural borders are through the Carpathians, which would include Moldova, and then the Baltic Sea, which would include Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. So there's no scenario where Putin stops until he gets at the minimum all of Ukraine, Moldova, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. Obviously, Finland is at risk. Parts of Poland is at risk. The Caucasus are at risk. But immediately, in the next 2 to 4 years, the Russians want the Baltics. They want Moldova. They want all of Ukraine. And they don't care how many millions die on both sides. There is no debates. There is no advisory council that can actually talk back or check Putin. Putin goes to bed every night and sleeps perfectly fine because there is no dissent. There is no opposition. There's nothing to worry about internally inside of Russia to stop what he wants to do.
I did hear as well, and I also touched this topic in one of my previous videos, I did hear that there is some kind of propaganda started happening in the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, where pretty much TV propaganda, I don't know, like media news, they kind of start saying that we miss the former days of Soviet glory, blah, blah. This might be unpopular channel set now, maybe not the mainstay channels or anything, but once again, it always starts small, it always starts quote unquote insignificant. People don't pay attention to it until it gets too big to ignore. So Baltic states, you mentioned them, I think, yes, this might be one of the next directions for Putin if he does not stop in Ukraine. For this reason, I guess maybe another logical question here would be if the war from Ukraine then just flows into the war into Baltics or any other countries, maybe seamless, without like stops, without ceasefire, it just continues like it is. How long do you think this whole thing will continue? How long the war will continue? When do you think it's going to stop? I know it's a very hard question, but what is your estimation when it all stops?
Wait, you're talking about Ukraine or the Baltics?
Like the whole aggression from Putin's side. It's very thin
This
border.
only this only stops with the death of Putin.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that is exactly what I was
I
thinking.
mean, it's
You're gonna say.
it's one guy that is making all of this continue, and either one of his bodyguards has to choke him out in the nights, or an FPV drone, probably flown by a Russian citizen, somehow gets him, or he has a heart attack, a stroke, or gets cancer. That's what we're waiting for. There is a secret doomsday clock counting down to the death of Putin that we don't know what the numbers are, but it's going to happen in your lifetime and my lifetime. I hope it happens sooner than later, but I don't think Putin is ever going to stop. As long as there are still Russian men signing contracts or allowing themselves to be mobilized, at gunpoint even, then they're going to keep attacking, keep charging, keep taking losses. And uh, when you, I don't want to lecture you because you are Russian, but when you have the history of Russia and how many millions died in their previous wars that historically weren't that long ago, 80 years is still within the lifetime of people alive. How many casualties they've taken in this war? It's shocking to Americans, but it's not shocking to the Russians. America's deadliest war was our Civil War, and I think 800,000 soldiers on both sides died. But that's nothing. That's peanuts compared to the death and destruction and misery during wartime that the Russians have experienced. So it's a different mentality that doesn't exist in the West anymore. Once again, I'm not lecturing you. This has been a lesson that I've had to teach myself and try to understand to the best I can the last 3 years. Because as a Westerner, it's been shocking to me to watch how tolerant they are of just pointless death, needless death with these meat assaults.
Unfortunately, I guess no argument here. That is the mentality that they're training. I'm no longer in Russia. I left long time ago, and even left long before like the whole Crimea thing started. It was just in the middle of Crimea, so that's another topic, I guess, for another video. What I want to say is that you mentioned that there is a doom clock for Putin, and maybe like some bodyguard strangles him in his sleep or anything. We had similar discussion with my father. Okay, gonna call him out. We thought that maybe it's gonna be a bodyguard whose relative or whose friend is gonna die in Ukraine, and he'll be just like walking behind Putin, and then he's like, okay, now is my time, takes the gun out, and then end of story. trying to be saying things I can say on YouTube without getting yellow or red dollar sign icon. You know what I mean, right? So long story short, then Putin. Then the traditional question of the podcast, of the interview, where we end it all. It's gonna be a short question, and it most preferably if you have a short answer. Don't overthink it. Just say whatever the first thing comes to your mind. So the question is, if you're in front of Putin, what are you going to tell him?
Tell him?
Yes.
You're not as great as you think you are. You're a pretty average person. And what you accomplished in Russia, any number of mafia thugs could have accomplished this. There's nothing unique or special about you. And history will not remember you kindly. You have no legacy to live on. Ukraine has ruined your reputation, ruined your country. You're a nobody.
Yes. And on that note, I guess it is pretty much time to end it then. Thanks so much, Jake, for participating. Thanks so much for sharing your thoughts. It was a pleasure having you here. Very knowledgeable person you are. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience. And thank you guys so much for watching.
Take care, Artem.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.